243.
All right. Welcome, everyone. It's great to see you this morning.
Hello, everyone. My name is Mike Berta. I'm responsible for sales and business development here at Smile. I do want to thank everyone for attending this webinar, and this is the first in a number of webinars that we plan to provide. Providing the webinar today is Maya Olson, who you just heard from. Maya leads our marketing and is responsible for customer experience. She also knows TextExpander inside and out because of her years providing support. Now, this webinar will focus largely on how an individual would use TextExpander. If you're interested in exploring the benefits of TextExpander for teams after this webinar, please feel free to contact me directly about scheduling a training on that specific functionality. And we will provide access to contact information after the webinar. So with all that, I will leave you in the very capable hands of Maya Olson. Maya, take it away.
So to start, I just want to make sure that everybody can see my screen. I just want to double check you can all see my slides up there so you can type in yes. Oh, thank you guys for responding. All right, let's get going. So today we're here to learn all about TextExpander. So I have been using TextExpander for many years now, and I like to think of myself as a power user, but then I keep talking to other TextExpander users and learning the even more amazing things that they're doing. So I hope to share some of those tips with you today. So to start out, I want to talk about what I hope you get out of this. So I want you to get ideas about the sort of things that you can make into snippets to help you save major time. I'll show off some of the features you may not have seen, and also I want to make sure that you have your app set up the best to work for you, because there's a lot of preferences and settings, so I want to make sure you have everything adjusted just the way you need. So to get started, let me just show you a super quick little workflow I've made for myself. So this is just a series of snippets I've set up because I answer a lot of email, so these are all geared at answering emails. So let's say I'm just introducing myself to someone has emailed me, I'm answering a common question. So I have a snippet set up for a greeting because this is just another thing that I now don't have to think about and don't have to misspell. I have snippets for all of the answers to common questions I get. I have snippets for the standard closing statement that I'd like to have. And actually, I have several that I like to switch through. So I've set up this pop-up field to let me choose between the ones that I have. I feel like using this one today. And then I also have a snippet for my signature. So that's just a little glimpse into how I've set up a series of snippets to work together for me. So when you're thinking about things to make into snippets, I want you to just take a look at everything that you are typing day in and day out and think, have I typed this before? Do I not want to have to type this again? Well, then you should make it into a snippet. So there are a lot of things that you can turn into snippets. Personally, I highly recommend you create a library of your own personal mistypings, misspellings. So as you see here, this is the TextExpander window, and on the left I have my mini groups, and so I have set up this group of all of my own personal autocorrects. These are the things that don't show up in a normal autocorrect group, but that my fingers just do not like spelling out, so highly recommend that you have a group like that. Also, any sort of brand name, so there's actually a group that you can get for free. It's in our public groups, so if you go to our website on public groups, we have a brand names group. I think that's up here at the top. And that will help you correctly spell things like Facebook and MailChimp and WordPress. And so that's just, so any of you can just come to this page and subscribe to this group to get those auto corrections. Also, any emojis or URLs. So I have URLs to all of the many things I have to sign into on the web. And this means that whenever I have to go somewhere, I don't have to worry about using the wrong browser because I set up bookmarks in Chrome, but this day I'm using a Safari. Also, I can search, because you can search on your snippets very easily, but I can't search through all of my saved bookmarks very easily. So, for example, I'm going to clear out my scratchpad here. So to get into, we have various WordPress websites, and so I have a snippet set up that can switch between either of our WordPress website logins. I have a snippet set up to get into any of our many Twitter accounts. You'll notice I've created these snippets with a lot of these pop-up options, so that way I can have a single snippet that then gives me multiple options. So, TextExpander. So that's just types of things you can make into snippets. More groups that help you are the accent words. That is another group that actually we offer in public groups and you can get for free. So like creme brulee. So they will put in the accent marks that you, like me, may not have even known were on that word. That way you look like you know what you're doing. Then there's emoji groups. So if you want to expand an emoji, which I can never actually remember what the emoji are, so instead I will use the search colon thumbs up. So we've got all these emoji that you can join, emoji groups that you can join. You'll notice I just did a search, so I'll get to that later, but that is very handy. That is actually my number 2 tip that you need to use TextExpander, is being able to search quickly on all of your snippets, because actually, as you see over in the TextExpander window, I currently have 6,000 snippets, so of course I don't remember any of their actual abbreviations except for the ones I used most. So searching, very important. I will stress that later. Accented words, email addresses. It's amazing how often I have to expand my own email address, even with autofill on in Safari, even with 1Password. Just typing in your email address is a thing that comes up a lot. So any of these little things that can help save you time, I highly recommend making those into snippets. So other than sort of very small, quick things to save you a little bit of time, and especially searching through special panels and finding special characters like emoji, those make really good sort of short snippets. Something else to think of is sort of medium-sized things, so like the paragraph that I expanded for the email. Let me clear this out again. Something that's a little bit more of a framework. So I don't know if any of you are familiar with HTML or CSS or something like that, but then you can create snippets to represent both the syntax that you're using, so that way it's complete, so you don't forget anything. So here is just header tags, and you'll notice something neat happened. Actually, the cursor jumped in right between these tags, so I can start typing immediately. That's one of the many macros that we support. So we support a whole range of sort of advanced features called macros. And actually, let's take a look at that snippet. So you'll see we have the tags here, and then in between there's this little percent pipe that is actually a pipe symbol. But you don't need to remember that, because to enter any macro, you just come up here to the editing bar, and you will click on the position cursor here, and then that'll just immediately put this little macro in place where your cursor is. So that way you don't have to remember this, but you get the benefit of using it. So if we want to go a little bit larger, I also have a whole setup for a table. So taking this first idea and then expanding it, now I have everything I need as a framework, which is really handy. So I also have one for a meeting. So this is my agenda layout for whenever I meet with Mike for our sales meeting. And you notice that it has the current dates, a spot for the agenda, and then also a whole series of these optional sections. So these are another type of fill-in field. So I can just turn on and off everything that I want to talk about in that meeting, and then I expand it and we can start filling it in. So let's take a look at that one. So you'll note that I have made this a formatted text and pictures snippet. So many times I'll just use plain text. Plain text snippets mean that whenever I expand it, whatever format and font is in the place I'm expanding. So let's say I'm writing an email. Whatever I expand will just blend into that email. So everything's Helvetica, I don't have to worry about it. But if I want to have something bold, oh, I just realized this is a plain text field. So let me do that again so you can appreciate the formatting. There, now we have the pretty formatting that I made it with. Sorry about that. Right, so formatted text pictures, just like we just saw, actually keep any of the formatting that you make them with. So you can have bold, you can have different colors, you can also have images and links. And so you just select anything, any word, and then you can click on the URL linking and button, and then you can paste in any URL you want, and then that word becomes a link. You can also drop in any images. Just click on the image button, and then you can search for any images on your desktop and drop those in. Remember that you will need to change the size of the image to be whatever pixel size you want it to be before you put it into the snippet, because this is not an image editor. I'm going to get rid of that because that doesn't really belong here. This is a good spot to look at dates also. So these dates, you'll notice, don't look anything like the date that expanded over here. That's because these are yet another set of macros. And so to add a date, let's say we wanted this date to be 2 days in the future. So first of all, if we come to our calendar button, so this is where we can add the different pieces of date. So you'll see that I've already added, this is July, so let me just redo that. So to add the month of July fully written out, I would just click on this, and then that enters the little macro. You will need to include all of your own formatting, so I want a space there, so I have to add that space. But now if I wanted this to be 2 days in the future, I come to this little calculator button, and then I can click add days, and we get this little chunk here. You'll notice that it says +1, so if I wanted it to be 2 days, I could just make that a 2. And then what I would get is 2 days in the future. And really helpful when working on some of these trickier things, we have a preview button up here. So you can actually click on this and you get a preview of what the expanded snippet will look like. And so we can see here that it is now 2 days in the future. All right, so we had that series of optional sections. So these are down here, and let's say we wanted to add another one. So I'm going to come down here and say this is going to be the next thing. So I'm going to copy this and actually cut it, since that's not the ultimate text we want. Then I'm going to come up here to the fill-ins button and click on optional section, and that adds the optional section for me. And here is where the content goes, and so I'm going to paste in what I just copied, and so now we have a new list. So let's try that again. we go. So now we have our third optional section added. So each field does get a name. In this case, I removed the names because the content's so short, I can see it just like it is. All right, so that's a little bit about fill-ins, but we're talking about other types of snippets. And so we saw some sort of medium-sized chunks of snippets, and that each of those things is to help you from having to, say, look up a piece of information. Frequently, you'll have to expand something or write something out, and you know what it is, but you can't fully remember it, so then you go searching through old documents and old emails to find it. If you stick it in TextExpander, you can search very quickly in the field and you'll get it. Finally, there's sort of larger items and boilerplate frameworks that you can do. So let's take a look at one of those that's a bit more advanced. So here we have a nice long thing with long email with lots of different fields in it. So you can actually tab through these fields, so you don't actually have to use the cursor at all. So I'm going to say I'm talking to Bob again. So if I hit the tab key, that takes me to the very next pop-up in line. And I can use the arrow buttons to arrow down. If I hit return, then that will select. I can tab and I can expand a snippet that I've already set up for being 2 days in the future. So you can also expand snippets inside of these little fill-in fields as you're expanding the original snippet. A lot of expanding inside of expanding. And you'll note that I've set up a time, so I can choose between these 2 times here, and tabbing, filling in, and now we come to another use of the optional section. So you'll notice I can option tab to get to this little checkbox, and then I can use the spacebar to turn it on or off. So this field will expand with the snippet when it's on like this, and if I turn it off, then that entire section will not show up in the expanded snippet. You'll notice the interesting thing is that I have included an optional section inside of another optional section. So that means if you need to get a bit more complicated, maybe you have sort of a logic tree of, okay, I need to, if this, then these options, if that, then those options need to appear in the snippet. Well, with optional sections, since you can nest them inside each other, then you can do that. Also, in this specific case, this optional section is not meant to be expanded ever. You'll notice that I put note, and this is basically a note to anyone who's expanding this snippet on how they should expand it. And so that's just another way to try to describe in a long, complicated snippet how to use it and how to use certain parts of it to yourself or to any team that you might be sharing with. And so I'm going to keep tabbing through here. And finally, you notice that this field is filled out with Bob. But we filled in Bob at the top. That's because both of these fields have the exact same field name, and that means they're treated as the same field. So that way you can fill out the same information in multiple spots very quickly. Okay, so having said all of that, we can now expand our snippet. Everything's filled out and customized, which is great. You'll notice one other thing, that I was able to expand this in the subject line, and then it tabbed itself down into the email body. So let's take a look at how to do that. All right, looking over here at our snippet, in the snippet window, you'll notice this little macro. Again, macros are surrounded by %signs, that's how you recognize it. And this is a press of the tab key. So you can access this in the little keyboard button by clicking on tab, and then that enters this macro into your snippet. That means whenever you would physically have to press the tab key to get from one field to the other, that's what that's representing in your snippet. And so we have our tab key, we have our single line fill-in, which is the first name, which you would access through fill-ins, single line, We had our little pop-up down here. This is the days of the week. And so to enter a fill-in of that type, you would just put in pop-up menu, and then you get all of your little pop-ups. And it comes with a little field like this to allow you to fill it in more quickly. So let's say I wanted to add another day. I could add Saturday. And OK. And now we have updated our snippet. And finally, yet another thing you may notice is that we have things for our time. Bob, remember this single line fill-in has the exact same name, top name, as the top single line fill-in. So that way these are exactly the same, so they can fill out at the same time. And down here we have a nested snippet. So I said we could nest the optional macros inside of other optional macros. Well, you can also nest snippets inside of other snippets. So if we look at the expanded content, this is what's in the snippet, but this is what actually showed up. So I have created a snippet for my email signature, and it is the little sig.pr. And instead of just pasting the content into this snippet, I can now reference it in this signature snippet. What that lets me do is set up multiple different snippets for different emails I'm doing. So maybe I have 10 different emails that I've set up as their own snippets. If I wanted to update any piece of this signature, which is fairly long and complex, I only have to do it once, and then every one of those 10 other email snippets that I have is then updated because it's just referencing this one snippet. So that can be really handy and save you some time. All right, and keep in mind that when we are using fill-in fields, so a percent and both also a colon are special characters. So that means you should not have any colons inside of any of your pop-ups or optional fields. It also means that if you want a percent sign to expand, like as in 50%, you will need to double up the percent sign so that way it expands correctly. So let us talk about how you should set up your app. So we mentioned already that you can add plenty of groups for free at our website, so you can make sure to flesh out the types of snippets that you have. Also make sure to remember how to search your snippets. So there's a little menu bar item up here. If you click on that, you'll be able to search. You can also navigate to any of your snippets and then click, and they will expand. There are also hotkeys that you can set up, and that is the command / on Mac. So that's what I showed you earlier, command /, and then every possible snippet matching whatever you can remember will appear. So that searches in the abbreviation, the label, or the content. And so you can open up preferences, hotkeys, and then you can set up any of these. I really like the create new snippet from clipboard. That means you copy something, hit this hotkey, and you can immediately start creating a snippet right while it's at the top of your mind while you're thinking about it. And inline search is set up by default. Command / on Mac, control / on Windows. Very important. Right, so I see that we are getting near the end of our time, so I'm going to wrap this up. I'm curious if you have any questions, so I'd like to get into the QA section and see if there's anything you'd like us to clarify.
Okay, Maya, can you still hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay, so I actually have been going through the questions here and responding to some folks. So how do I add a snippet to a particular folder? How do I add subheadings within a folder like your autocorrect folder? That is one question I have, and I apologize, I've been answering questions, so I'm not sure if you answered that already. Let me know if you did.
I am not sure, but whatever you find that's super interesting, let's answer it out loud so everybody can hear.
Okay. Did you go through how do you set pop-ups for a snippet?
Yes, so to set a pop-up, you would simply click on fill-in and then pop-up menu, and then you get the little menu to customize everything.
We we did have a couple of questions on how you launch the search bar so quickly, and I believe that is set up in preferences. Did you walk people through preference? I've just been answering questions, so I apologize. I was listening, but not closely.
Yeah, so the search hotkey is set up by default /.
Okay. And then table formats for applications like Microsoft Word, where you want a style applied. Now, I think that might be a little bit more advanced. I don't know if you want to go through table creation or just creating a table. We may actually, I think some of this we may want to wait for another webinar. So I think I'm going to stop talking. Have you allowed other people to talk or ask questions? How are we going to do this?
Wait, is that a question?
It is a little bit. I
me?
apologize. It is kind of open to you. How do you want to take questions from the audience?
This is how we're doing it. We just want to read what you guys are typing in, and then we can respond to you out loud.
Okay, I'm going to go towards the bottom. Is there any way to get preview on Windows version?
Not currently. That is a feature that we are working on still. I also have a question for, do you have a system for abbreviations to help you remember? And actually, we do.
Okay, all right. Do you want to go through and read the questions and answer rather than having me read it?
Let's go back and forth through it. So let me get through the good abbreviations for a second. So yes, you don't want abbreviation to be typed by accident, and so it should be something that's not a piece of a word. We like to go with prefixes for abbreviations. So maybe doubling up the first letter, such as email. For all of the URLs, I like to start with / or even // depending on what group it's in. Also, when you're grouping your snippets, you want to sort of look at them as unique topics. So everything that is a URL is in a single group. Everything that our support team shares is a single group. So that lets you get more descriptive prefixes. So for example, this sup.download. So a support snippet would start with sup period, and then it would end with something topical to the content of that snippet. So this is like sup period.download is an example of a snippet explaining how you would download something. And so think in terms of prefixes.
Okay, so I've been going through some of these questions. I think some of these questions, just to let the audience know, will probably be subject for another webinar. But one great question is, this has given me many great ideas, but I'll need to refer to some documentation to really learn how to do this. Where is the documentation on these advanced uses?
Excellent question. So
yes,
just head over to our website. That is TextExpander.com. And we actually have a whole support section. And that has our knowledge base, tips, videos, and so you can access all of our interesting information that you need to get started on our website here.
Okay. Do we need to stay connected to the webinar to get access to the video afterwards, or will it be emailed to all attendees? Maya, I'll let you answer.
You will all be getting a copy of the link of this video after the webinar.
Okay. Tab snippet, tell Maya. Okay.
Is there a date selection via a calendar selection pop-up? No, there is not, but that is a popular request. So good to hear that that has come up.
This is. Can you show how you place another snippet in the optional field snippet?
How to nest the optionals inside of each other, you mean?
Yeah, yeah.
Okie dokie. Get rid of this. Okay, let me clear this out. So because of the pop-ups are really made to be sort of accessible to beginner users, so doing something like that is a bit more advanced. So in order to do that, I'm going to need to copy and paste from a document and then back in. So let's say I have an optional section, content. Hi. All right. So now I'm going to actually cut this with command cut and paste it over here. And so what I want is an optional inside of this. So I have to break this up, and then I want to get another optional. Actually, this is an optional, so I'm going to copy this, and now I can paste it inside. So now I have two of these inside of each other. And if I want to just change the content, remember, no colons inside. I almost did that. So now I have an optional inside of an optional, and I can paste that back into my snippet. And if we expand it, here we have our second optional inside of an optional. So there we go.
Somebody asked Maya, let me know if you're about ready. Just ask what version of TextExpander you're using.
I am using version 6, so that is the version that includes the Mac app, the Windows app, and the iOS app. If your icon looks like this, it's orange and it has a little T symbol, that is the version 6. So I know some of you are using version 5 or possibly version 4. If you'd like to test out the new version and all of its features, then you can come to our website and just sign up for a demo account, and you can test it out for a little while. If you decide you don't like it, you could just go back to version 5. You're not going to lose any snippets or anything.
We have a question on whether this works with Windows 10, and so yes, it does. And I'll also mention too that it is our intent to have a webinar on Windows specifically, doing this in Windows as well. And then Maya, a question to you: to add an image, do I need to have the files on the desktop?
I'm sorry about my misspeak. They just need to be anywhere on your hard drive. They don't have to be on your desktop.
This seems very, I do appreciate all the questions here. I have a couple of questions or comments that says this seems somewhat advanced. We're more than happy, and I believe that Maya has set up a survey after this. We're more than happy to do another webinar and start to develop it specifically for what everyone needs. The response to this has been great, and we do appreciate everyone's time. I think that's a lot of the questions, and I do think there's probably a lot of questions that Maya, you and I will go through and respond hopefully to people. This is our first time doing the webinar with GoToMeeting. We're very happy with GoToMeeting, but I think that we'll probably get better at this as well. So I apologize for any missteps or any sort of misstarts. So we do appreciate everyone's time. Maya, do you have anything else that you want to add in close?
Just that this is the start of a whole series of webinars on various topics, and we'll certainly be doing ones that are more beginner and ones that are more topical. And so just keep an eye out for us in the future. We will be responding to any of the questions that you pose in our survey at the end, which I hope you fill out, please. We would love to hear what you want to learn more about, and that way we can give you what you want.
All right. I think, yeah.
So thank you very much, everybody, and have a great morning.
Yeah, I think I'm still. Yeah, and I think we'll try to go through and maybe answer questions, or I don't know necessarily how we can email them to people, but we'll try to follow up. If you guys do have any questions, my email directly is just Mike mike@smilesoftware.com. Please feel free to email me your questions, and I will make sure that either I respond to them or find the right person at Smile to take care of that for you. mike@smilesoftware.com.
And that's it for today. So thank you, everybody.